It is my pleasure to introduce to you our two speakers for the day, Wilco Jansen and Landry. Both of these gentlemen are with the Joomla project, which is an open source content management system. They're joining us today to tell us a little bit both about the Joomla project and the Joomla project's participation in the Google Summer of Code program. So please join me in welcoming both of them.
I hope the sound is working. Yes, it's working already. We're actually going to talk about the Joomla project and we did in Summer of Code. I will hand this over to Lewis because this won't work. You can flip it, thank you. We called it live at the Joomla Bazaar. We're open source and we're working hard on being one of the best open source content management systems in the world. We're going to look back. We're going to look forward, and we want to tell something about what we did in Summer of Code. This is us, Lewis. Lewis is a lead developer. In fact, he will be lead developer soon. He isn't yet entitled lead developer. He's one of the developers of our new Joomla framework. He's Joomla core team member. We'll explain something about our organization, what we do there. Lewis is coming from the United States, and he will take over now.
Okay. Wilco is one of my recruits to come and help with the project. I met him on the forums. It was sort of one of those random open source things. And within a matter of days, I knew that I wanted him to join the project. I asked him to join along with a couple of the other core team members, and now he is actually coordinating our development. He's sort of the open source equivalent of a project manager and developer, and just overall good guy. As he said, we're going to look at sort of where we came from because we're a relatively new project. Well, it's an old project and a new skin. Where we've come in the brief period of time that we've been around, and what our plans are for the future, how the Joomla Bazaar and the Cathedral, it's an interesting mix. We try to find the balance between the purest open source world and being able to choose the right tool for the right job and sort of embrace the commercial aspects of things as well. And then, of course, the most important part of the talk, I guess, the Google Summer of Code's impact on our project and how we've used it as a tool.
Here we go.
Okay. We came from a project called Mambo, or Mambo, depending on which part of the world you're from. This was a content management system that was released, I think, back around 2000, 2001. A commercial company in Australia released it. And it was released on SourceForge, and a few guys picked it up and started working on it. And it quickly became popular, mostly due to its user interface. It was one of the first ones that was just easy for everybody to use. People could pick it up and play with it. One of the most common questions I get is, what happened? Because about a year ago, everybody that was Joomla, or everybody that was Mambo at the time, split and left. And it was one of the more interesting forks, if you will, in the open source world, because it was completely unanimous and completely silent. Like there was no bashing coming from the developers' end. It was just, there was an open letter to the community and everybody just moved. We like to call it a spoon instead of a fork because actually everybody now at Mambo is new and everybody now at Joomla is what was Mambo. It's been an interesting ride, but this is one of the important things about where we are. We started the project from scratch. We had no infrastructure. All we had was a code base. And of course that's very important, but we had to sort of rebuild the community around it and rebuild all of the sites and infrastructure and everything that it takes to keep an open source project running. And it's been really hard, and I think because of the level of success we seem to have achieved, that seems to sort of get lost at how far we've come in the brief period of time that we've come. So here's a quick timeline. Joomla was born September 1st, 2005. We released the first version, which was rebranded and bug fixed, which was Joomla, which is very similar to the Mambo roots. We opened up our Forge, our developer Forge, very soon thereafter. It actually, as it stands now, is the largest installation of SourceForge Enterprise on the planet. VA Software donated it to us and has been hosting it ever since. And this has been one of our greatest successes because all of the developers that build on top of Joomla register accounts there, and they have like the full power of the Forge and the source repositories and the wiki and the trackers and all those sorts of things. The developer network is something that we did a little later on. There was always this sort of stigma that the Joomla developers didn't really talk to the outside world so much. We were always sort of looked at as not closed, but because it's such a tight-knit group, there was not as much outward communication for such a community that we have because it's very user oriented. And so we created the developer network, which is just a site in within our family that has blogs on it that we communicate with them, and it houses a lot of our developer documentation and things like that. And that turned out to be a great success, followed by our greatest success, our extension site, which Joomla is a pluggable system. You can upload zip packages that it automatically installs for you, and it's very much, Joomla is very much like the operating system of a content management system, and then the packages that you install are like the applications. And most of the applications that exist are third party. We don't write them. And so what we found was that most of our user base had trouble navigating the Forge looking for packages and things like that. So we built this extension site, which actually gets more traffic than any of our other sites at this point. It's one of our greatest success stories, and it was actually built by one of our third-party developers. Let's see, much further on, Joomla 1.5. This is the rewrite that really is what Joomla is. Joomla 1.5 is a complete rewrite of the existing code base. It's an object-oriented framework. It's lots and lots of fun to play with, and it is the direction that we're going in. It's been evaluated usability-wise. We make lots of decisions based upon user feedback because most of our community is user. Anyway, it is the future, and it's a wonderful milestone to have a complete rewrite of the software in that brief period of time. Our official user manual was released not long ago, and then Joomla 1.0.12, which is what we're hoping to be the final release of the 1.0 series. The beta was released on the 12th, and actually, as everything goes as planned, the final will be released tomorrow. So that's the brief history of it. This is actually part of the success story. When we first started, this is what a Google search for Joomla looked like. There was basically nothing.
Yeah.
And where are we now and where are we going? We have 75,000 registered users on our forum, 55,000 registered developers on our Forge. Obviously, these numbers are self-explanatory. We've blown up huge in the period of time that we've been around. The traffic that we get is ridiculous. I still marvel at the fact that different people have different ideas about how important Alexa is, but for us to be that high in this brief period of time is just stunning to me.
Yeah.
As with what I've noticed to be a lot of open source projects, the concentration is in Europe. We've got obviously a lot of US and other areas, but this is the analytics for the entire family of Joomla websites, and that is actually stunning how popular we are in Europe, which is why all of our events in Europe seem to attract so many people. I'm continually amazed. A lot of our developers are there, and an enormous number of our users are there as well. This is a few days ago, and as you can see, there's an awful lot of hits now on Joomla. So in a period of about a year, we've gone from nothing to just enormous amount of popularity. The Google Trends graph is actually also a really fun thing to look at. But this amazes me. I can't believe I'm even part of a project that was able to do that in that period of time. And then musings in the future.
Who knows?
But I'm, like I said, continually amazed at how popular we've become as quickly as we've gotten there. OK, so future. Last release of 1.0 is very soon, tomorrow, hopefully. The 1.5 release, it's the completely new framework. One of the things that we've tried very hard to do is provide backwards compatibility so that all these third-party developers won't have to rewrite everything because everything has changed in the new version. So that's been something very important to us. The future release is something that I will be working on immensely. This is sort of the dream, if you will. It's had many names over the years, even back in the Mambo years. Version 2.0 will be basically throwing all of the toys and gadgets that we've worked on and wanted to work on for so long, but couldn't because of backwards compatibility reasons. And more on that when we talk about the Summer of Code involvement. Summer of Code was something that we definitely used to do research and development. This is actually one of my pet projects as well. We partnered up with the Eclipse project, or a committer on the Eclipse project, and a few other friends that I've met at different events. And we are creating a Joomla IDE, J-code. And it will be, the first preview build was built a week or so ago. And it will be a fully branded and personalized Joomla IDE. You'll be able to deploy Joomla packages. There will be wizards for creating Joomla components and things like that. It's really exciting because I don't know of any other projects, at least in our area of the world, that have something like this. And one of the things that we're trying so desperately to do is attract developers and show that we are a serious project for developers as well, because our user base is just so overwhelmingly end user that we tend to not get the sort of the attention from the development community that I personally think we should. So. A quick look at our structure. It's one of the things I learned at the Summer of Code Summit was that all of these projects tend to have very different structures. Ours is equally different. We started out with a core team, which sits on the top. Right now, I think we have 22, 23, something like that, guys. And it's a flat structure. There are project leads. We have 3 interim ones at the moment. But other than that, it's a completely flat structure. And most of them are not developers, actually. Most of them are, we have coordinators of the different working groups. And these would be the working groups, translation, quality and testing, development, and all of these. And what we've done is basically created a 3-tier system. The core team is the coordinators and the people that make the overarching decisions and things like that, and provide, or actually enforce the direction. The working groups are where most everything happens. We've just, with the new version, done internationalization for static translations for the different text strings within the application. And the translation working group is a group of people, I don't know how many languages we have now, but I think it's upwards of 70, yeah, 70. Different translations of the Joomla application. And they have all sub-teams, but the translation working group is made up of the leaders of each individual translation group. The quality and testing group is something that's pretty new. Well, it's not necessarily new, but it's new that they're very active. We've changed the way that we structure the project. During the development phase, everything is run by the development working group, which is a group of 15 now, I think. And he would be the coordinator. But as soon as we reach an RC status, we pass everything off to the quality and testing group. And then they drive development. Yes?
Question of translation. So you've heard, when it's like, because of literal extensions, you never have some translation. Do you help translating those as well, or in the core context?
The translation working groups, at the moment, basically, all it does is the core, but we provide API abilities for, and you can install language packs. So any third-party developer can use the same system that everything else uses and create the translations. And my guess, and it's a relatively new thing because the translation in its full form only happened in the 1.5 version, which is in beta right now. So as my guess is, as that progresses, a lot of these translation working groups will likely be picking up on the more popular extensions and doing that sort of thing as well. And we've allowed for you to install like a core language pack or an extension language pack. So it gives you the ability to do that. So at any rate, when we reach the RC status, the quality and testing drives the release, and they drive everything. So at that point, the developers are basically sitting in the back seat, and the testers are checking for bugs and filing reports and assigning bugs to developers, and then we attack them as we have time. And when everything's settled and they sign off on it, then it gets released. Sites and infrastructure. This is probably, outside of, I guess, development, the most important working group that we have because
it's the biggest one.
It's the biggest one by far, yeah. These guys run the show. I mean, these guys run the forums, all the websites, and make sure that we are available to the outside world. So it's nice having the separation so that developers can worry about developing and these guys can worry about making sure that everything's okay within those communication lines. Documentation group, self-explanatory. Design and accessibility is a relatively new thing too. They worry about the website designs and such for all of our websites. They also focus on accessibility and usability for the application itself. So these guys tend to be more experts in the realm of web standards and making sure that we are as usable and functional as we can be for the largest audience that we can reach. And then marketing and media, which is, I've heard many open source people say, well, you really shouldn't have marketing and media because that sounds very corporate. It's not that evil. It's just that it's nice for us to have a cohesive voice. And those guys, it's a very small group, help that. And they also help plan events and things like that. And then underneath the community. And it's an open thing. The flux between the community and the working groups is pretty good. And we welcome any help, obviously. We're open source. So this structure is relatively new, but it's working out amazingly well. Yeah. Covered a lot of this. We don't have a very, very strict hierarchy. It's a very flat organization at the top, and then the working groups underneath is a very flat organizations, and then the community. So it's very much like a meritocracy. If what you do is what defines how important you are. We have 3 interim project leads because our old project lead stepped down. He was burnt out, I'm sure. And they are making a lot of the decisions from a structural standpoint, but again, it's very flat, so it's not as if there's a real solid hierarchy. We have a nonprofit foundation, Open Source Matters, which was one of the first things that was done after the split to protect the assets of the project and make sure that everything stays open and free, obviously based on volunteers. Most work is done in the free time. Actually, the company that hosts all of our sites pays one of our site and infrastructure guys to just maintain the sites, which is a really nice gesture. So it's donated, and at the same time he's being paid, so that's all that he does. Not-for-profit, gift economy. This is actually a really important part of it. We all have basically the same end goals, and one of the things that I've learned is culturally we're all very different because we're spread out all over the place, but we all basically have the same goals, and we tend to help each other without even really realizing it, and I really love that aspect of it. The motivation is really high because, much like the difference between taking an art class or a math class in school, if you take art, it's because you want to take it, not because you have to. And the same is true of open source and the meritocracy aspect of the status is based on what you do and not who you are. And for this, I will
Okay.
let the develop coordinator explain.
As Luz explained, we're moving to a more structural and organized way of doing things. We're putting in a working group structure. We're in the transition to putting things in place. And one of the things we did with the development strategy, Luz explained something about quality and testing, is put a decent development strategy in place. We have written a document. You can download it from a site which actually describes our development strategy, and it holds these topics in more detail. We do have a code of conduct. Actually, we took it from the Ubuntu project because we liked it, and that's the way we want to do and want to act in the project. It's very important when people who are not familiar with open source just understand how you work in open source. It's different when you're in a business environment doing things and doing things in open source. Team membership, like Luz explained in the Mambo times, we had a core team doing all the stuff, and it was a relatively small group.
About 8 people.
Yeah, it's a small group, and we said, okay, we want to open up the project because it's growing very fast, and you need to have some kind of mechanism to add people who want to help out in your project. One of the most important things is how do you handle conflict resolution. You will have some conflicts to solve, and in a company you just can say, just shut up or go away, and in open source it's slightly different. Also resignation, people can be inactive for over a year and then return. So what's resignation? But it's when people want to step in and there's just no room to handle the project because we're doing this in spare time. So I can't handle 100 developers in my spare time. It's just impossible. 15 people I can do, but 50 people is already a problem. So you need to have some kind of mechanism to keep the project going and keep the active members be there. So resignation, yeah, that's something that happens. Not often, because most of the developers are very active, but it happens. We are thinking about the development lifecycle and code-based lifecycle. We have a very simple version strategy, major, minor, and maintenance release. On the major, minor maintenance releases, the development working group is in the lead, as Luz explained. And in the maintenance releases, quality and testing determines what needs to be done. That's a structure we put in place, I think, 3 months ago, and we really like it because the quality of the product is just improving. And the last bullet, communication and tools. Yeah, we have a development working group with 12 different people coming from 12 different countries and different time zones, and that's a challenge. Because not everyone speaks the language very well, and we're an English-based community. There are cultural differences. Oh yes, there are cultural differences.
Big time.
Sometimes you say something and you're completely misunderstood, and then the conflict resolution comes in place sometimes. But it's something you need to be aware of doing things. And very important because in rare occasions we meet. I've met Luz for 2 times now. 2 times at Googleplex, by the way. Communicating with each other, not seeing each other is a challenge. Yeah, we have several tools. We use IRC for chatting. We have Skype to do live video chats. Of course, we'll use a lot of the Google tools just to have mailing lists, etc. And it's a basic set of tools everyone needs to know of and needs to use. What did Summer of Code mean for us? Actually, I came into the project when Summer of Code started. Luz asked me to be a mentor, and I ended up to do the program management of all the projects we did. What does it mean for Joomla? Basically, this year's Summer of Code was a research project. We wanted to research new technologies we want to incorporate in our 2.0 framework. We'll have an overview of the project we did and the technology we have been researching. And yeah, we did talent search. I will tell more about that, what actually was the results of that. The Google Summit in October, it was in October, in November. It was a great experience to interact with other people of open source projects. When you're in your project, you talk to other open source projects, but there were about 90 other open source projects, and just interacting with those. How do you handle things? How do you manage growth? Because we're a pretty new project. How do you do those things? It was really great to be there. The last bullet, some of the structural changes Lewis explained were tested in Summer of Code. We didn't tell anyone about this, but really we did test some things. Does it actually work in an open source environment to put some structural changes in place? We did a questionnaire to all the people involved, the mentors and the students. Why do you even want to be involved in open source? But in this case, why do you want to be involved in open source, in Google Summer of Code? This is nice. People just want to be part of the project and add new functionality and say, hey, I have an idea, I want to build it for you.
By the way, these came from anonymous questionnaires given to the students that participated, and these were the top answers that we got.
Yeah. For the students, it's the first step in a professional career. At college, they study how you can program. In Summer of Code, they actually do it, and are guided by people who have a lot of experience in the business area. For some students, this is really true. To earn some money in summer, $4,500 is a lot of money, and we understand that. To learn real-life project work, one of the things that, and other open source projects already mentioned it, students are the most brilliant people you can find in your project, but they have never done project work. They want to jump to coding and don't do any kind of planning. So basically, they learn how to do project work and interact with the other members of a team, and that's very important. And yeah, that's maybe flattering for us, being in contact with the core team members. We want to talk to everyone, but actually some of the students are here, and we can interact on the things we want to do in the project, and that's really nice. And the last one, it's fun. Just Summer of Code is just fun to be there. Interacting with people, doing nice things, meeting interesting people, it's just fun. Basically, I think the whole Joomla project is fun, or else I wouldn't be standing here, but okay. This is a project structure of the program structure we did. Besides the 6 sponsored projects, we did 2 non-sponsored projects. I can be, that one I can handle very, very easily. The non-sponsored project didn't even start. So the money thing is helping out when you want to do something. 8 projects, by the way, is huge. Doing 8 projects in 12 weeks, that's a lot of work to handle and to manage. Yeah. We're glad we did 6 projects, and there you see the things we did. One of the students, Lawrence, will tell something about the XML RPC implementation we did. One of the other students will tell something about the ACL thing we did. We did a proof of concept with the Ajax, with the Ajax implementation in our framework. Basically, these projects are scheduled to be implemented in our 2.0 framework. And we had all the projects delivered a working proof of concept or a working beta. And the XML RPC project is now in final stage, or at least it's in beta stage, and it's a pretty awesome application doing very nice things. Summer of Code, where did everyone come from? My student was here in the US, so yeah, time zone differences were a real challenge. And because Lewis and I did the project management, we did have very little sleep in that period because we wanted to interact with everyone on a regular basis. For instance, we asked everyone to do a weekly report, and we wanted to interact with them. How's your project going? Do you need help? Basically anything to get things moving. and the red dots are the mentors, and the blue dots are the students. Challenges. Yes, like in an open source project in Summer of Code, you will see you have to handle same things, like time zone differences. Also, cultural differences are there. When you have a German mentor, it's different than you have a US mentor. Believe me, it is. Knowledge and skills. Sometimes a student knows way a lot more about the subject than the mentor does. And that's sometimes a challenge. A student who thinks he knows better, and sometimes he actually knows. But guiding them through the project and really put some results at the end, that's a challenge too.
There's a difference between knowing the technology and... Huh? Okay. Anyway, there's a difference between knowing the technology and knowing how to create a solution based on the technology. And one of the things that we found that a couple of our students knew the technology very well. They knew what they wanted to do, and they knew how to, I guess, programmatically make that happen. But there's a very big difference between being able to write an application and being able to work through a project and work with other people. And I think that's one of the things that the Google Summer of Code really helped to hammer home with a bunch of students.
Yeah. We handled that by doing some kind of planning. When students started, we asked them to write a project proposal, defining some milestones, define some kind of planning. Because the experience we have, students are so excited that they're part of Summer of Code. They just want to do everything, and they forget they only have 12 weeks to do that thing. And that's a challenge to say, okay, just do 10% of what you want to do, and then we're happy that you finish it. Release early and often, we had 6 branches where students committed their code on a daily basis. So every day you could check out the code and see what the student has been doing. It's very important that you have those opportunities in your tooling, that you actually can see progression. And if a student doesn't commit code for a week or two, then you know you have a problem. Communication, very, very important too, not only for the student itself and the mentor who's guiding him, but for the complete Summer of Code project. It's important to say, what are we doing, how are we doing things, which problems do we face, and how do we solve them. And the last one, if you talk openly, then a student can say, hey, that project is going like hell. I want to catch up. I want to do extra effort to keep up and present my work in a nice, proper way. Next year we will focus more on this, because actually the weekly reports, it's difficult for students to write them, to keep up do 12 reports, because the only thing they want to do is code. And that's okay, but the weekly report is important too. What are our results? It's questionable that you can give 100% positive evaluation. We gave our students this year the benefit of the doubt. Next year we will be more strict, and we will be more organized upfront, just saying, okay, when do we give a positive evaluation and not? We're talking to Google about how we can manage that in a more wider perspective for other projects, because other projects struggle with this problem also. We're very proud. We have 3 of the students joining the development working group. From the 6th, it's a 50% score. And they actually are very active as students at the moment. And we're very glad to have them around. And eventually, one mentor also joined the development working group. And yeah, that's okay. If students put out so much time into the project, doing Summer of Code, and they end up in the working groups, that's okay. To give you an estimate, students put in some time. There was one student who had put in 400 hours in this project. That's an amazing amount of hours. That's more than he should have done, but he did. And the mentors did 50 to 90 hours, and we agree that needs to be more next year. So we'll do a very strict selection on who is going to mentor or not. And yeah, project lead, yeah, it's part of the job. I don't know how many hours we spent, a lot. Now you see the 6 projects and the end-term evaluation we did. Also, I've written a report about Summer of Code, describing how we came to these results. I think Leslie will blog about it. She promised to do so, but we will see. Okay. What do we expect from Google? I'm wrapping up this presentation, and then we have room for questions. Just do the thing you do and help us out to have more hits on your site. Those 30 million seeds we've planted, so that actually are our hits. And we hope to have even more next year. At least I expect a 0 behind that, 300 million hits. No, I'm just kidding. We're very glad to have Google helping us out this way. It's awesome what you do for open source. We really appreciate it. And it's fun to be part of it. And actually, yeah. We hope you just increase the effort you make, just what I'm asking. And we end up with a slide note at you underneath. What Joomla actually is, one of our lead developers, Wilco Jansen, blogged it on our site. Joomla is not about a project, but is being part of a community where you actually can work together, share knowledge, and do great stuff, and having fun. And Leslie knows what fun is in the Joomla sphere because she was over with us on the Joomla Day 2 weeks ago, and she had fun. I thought she was having fun. Yeah. This was our presentation. We can talk for hours and hours about our project. We only were given an hour, so we're pretty good in time. Questions about our project?
Or about anything in general?
About anything in general, yeah. Nothing.
Okay.
That's okay. I have an announcement if there are no questions. This evening in Seville from 5 to 6, 3 of our summer code students from this year, and actually one of the students is from last year, will be presenting on their projects. So if you would like to join us in Seville at 5, there will be free software followed by free beer. So come on down. It'll be fun.
Thank you.